Nico Steves here. Since the crucifixion, the Virgin Mary is frequently included in artworks when Jesus is said to have appeared to the disciples, and also she too witnessed his appearances during those 50 days. He has risen. First off, an excerpt from my book, The Very Fine Light.
Chapter 15. As the clock read 4 p.m., Julie wrote Petros a check for his day's work. She almost never paid a worker at the end of the day. Julie could tell that Petros needed the money, and besides, the petty cash account had the unique luxury of being the only account with anything in it. Though the amount was modest, Petros could have dropped dead with relief. However, he maintained his gentle nature and simply said, "Thank you, thank you." "Expect to be paid at the end of each week worked," Julie replied in a formal tone. Petros nodded as he tucked the check into his shirt pocket. "How much fuel did you get today?" Julie asked him. I am not sure, but they did show me what I will need to be doing on the job," Petros said, trying to ingratiate himself for future work. Julie motioned towards the door as she grabbed her coat from the coat rack. "Really?" she said, following Petros to the doorway. "Well, I guess you did quite a bit in a short time." She began rubbing a piece of tape that had become unglued from a neatly printed note above the room thermostat. Meanwhile, up on the hill, Randy and Tina continued talking and walking around the cloistered hilltop field. It had been their special place long ago. Time melted away, and they both relaxed, now lost in this welcoming oasis from the worlds they lived in. It felt like they had come home. However, Tina had a habit of frequently checking the time. She looked at her watch. Randy nodded as she looked up at him. They both knew it was time to get going, and they slowly walked back across the tree line. At the sight of their vehicles, the duties and obligations of daily life started weighing on each of them. Finally, Tina said, "I should get back to—" "To what exactly, Tina?" Randy interrupted. "Oh, come on. I know you have to get back too." Yeah," Randy replied half-heartedly, then continued. "Well, this has been really great," and he wrapped his arm around her waist. She did not pull away, and they simply walked back over the berm, but the impulse to stay mushroomed. Randy stopped. "Oh, come on, let's stick around and take in the setting sun." Almost at the same time, they stopped and looked at each other. Randy tilted his head in the direction of the tree line. Tina hesitated, then laughed. Hand in hand, they marched back over the berm and made a beeline to the rusting aluminum tower at the far end of the field. This metal tower stood in a chain of identical stanchions that long ago had been placed there with one purpose, to support power lines that ran across the state. But this is the one Randy, Tina, and other long-forgotten cohorts visited each evening. They would climb up to the first support beam and perch there to watch the sun settle for the night. And on this day, the tower became a time machine of sorts, a sentinel that had remained standing there, providing the same function now as back then, unchanged and frozen in time. Now, once again, Tina and Randy climbed to the first perch, bringing back long-lasting feelings of these joyful times when they would solve the world's problems and spend intimate time together as one. They watched the auburn-red sun gradually disappear over the far ridge. This had truly been a most special day.
And now on to Eastertime. Easter Day begins the 50-day celebration when Christ rose and appeared in the flesh. It's likely one of his first apparition visits was to his mother. Christian tradition has long taken it for granted that one of the first appearances of the risen Lord was to see his mother. Mother Mary firmly believed her son's words when he foretold his resurrection from the dead. Surely the Virgin Mary too said, "He is risen." When Christ reappears in his human body after the resurrection on Easter, the celebrations of Eastertime during the first week, known as Bright Week in the Orthodox tradition, and Easter week in the Roman Catholic, and other Christian church traditions. Each day consists of singing each entire service in celebration to such a great miracle as the risen Christ. And so Easter Day is just the first of the 50 days of celebration up through Pentecost. Jesus appears multiple times to his faithful in the upper room where the Last Supper was, as well as continuing other places, including the town of Galilee, where 500 people saw him. So by the 40th day comes the Ascension, when Jesus appears for the last time in his human body, and he rises up to heaven, where he will become the celestial body, as promised to all believers who will be with him in his glory. Then comes the 50th day after the resurrection, Pentecost. And on this 50th day is when the disciples received the Holy Spirit as Christ had promised them. These are the observances that the churches honor beyond some people's remembrances as simply the one day of Easter that includes the popularized Easter baskets, the Easter egg hunts, and Easter Day dinner celebrations. People only seen during Easter when churches everywhere are filled to maximum capacity and beyond as people literally spill outside the front doors. It's always a wonderful sight to see, as well as being a part of so great an Easter crowd. At my church, there's a large mosaic icon of the Ascension of Christ that I reflect on. This icon of the Ascension shows Christ rising towards the heaven. Below are the apostles, as well as the Virgin Mary, too. And while the apostles logically are looking up at Christ as he's rising, they appear to be talking amongst themselves in wonderment while watching Christ as he rises, whereas the Virgin Mary is depicted in the center and very calm with her hands raised up in prayer. Also included are two angels behind the Virgin Mary who speak one line to those witnessed to the event. The one angel says, according to the Acts of the Apostles, "This same Jesus, which was taken up from you into heaven, will so come in like manner as you saw him go into heaven." This event occurs 40 days after Christ rose from the tomb, but 10 days before the Pentecost. Pentecost being the time when the Holy Spirit came down and empowered the disciples as they began their ministries of spreading the word of the risen Christ as the roots of the Christian church begins. And for the rest of her life, the Virgin Mary was always accompanied by the disciple St. John, and she is frequently included in artworks when Jesus is said to have appeared to the disciples. He has risen. Well, this is Nico Steves. I hope you enjoyed this installment. My book, The Very Fine Light, can be found using the title, The Very Fine Light, on Amazon.com. Please feel free to contact me at nicosteves.com. That's Nikos Steves, Steves.com. If you like this episode, and for more, share them with friends. This is Nico Steves. Thank you. See you next time.